Just a little info about me. I am 26, female, kind of a tomboy. I grew up climbing trees and playing in the dirt. I have never touched a Barbie in my life. Back in the summer of 2002, I was 16 at the time. My then boyfriend asked me to go on a camping trip with him and his parents. Me being the tomboy that I was, I graciously accepted. His parents planned a weekend full of rafting, boating, swimming, and the works. I was in paradise. They had an RV and it was furnished with everything. I slept in the living and kitchen area on a makeshift bed, even though my boyfriend's parents did not care where I slept. I did it out of courtesy. Such a lady. Side note, we were out in the middle of the woods at a designated camping area. It was so quiet and peaceful. You could hear the river in the stillness of the night. It was soothing. I remember thinking to myself, I could live here forever. The next day was probably the most fun day of my life. We all went kayaking, which I have to say was awesome. We swam and then my boyfriend's dad cooked out. I cannot remember the last time I had laughed so much and genuinely enjoyed myself. The day seemed to fly by. Before I knew it, it was time for us to go to bed. We had a big day planned for the next day, and I was eager to get to sleep so I could wake up and do it all over again. I remember lying awake though, staring at the ceiling. My boyfriend was snoring and I laughed as quietly as I could. He snored very loud. I got one last laugh before my life was literally changed forever. There was a tap on the side of the RV. It caught me off guard, but I was not alarmed. I thought it was a random noise, the ones that happen when something creaks or settles. Whatever. The bottom line is I was not scared. I tried to sleep, but I heard another tap. Then I heard an unmistakable giggle. I thought maybe my boyfriend's parents were awake and having some adult time. And I was thinking to myself, please God, let me fall asleep soon. Silence washed over the place. I could hear the river. I could hear the ringing in my ears you get when it is dead silent. I had this sinking feeling in my stomach. People say you get that feeling when something bad is about to happen. I felt it at that moment. In the dead silence, I heard the giggle again, followed by a scraping sound coming from outside the RV. My heart jumped into my throat and I felt tears in my eyes. When I get nervous or scared, I cry. Someone was outside the RV, but I was literally scared stiff. I could not move a muscle, and the scraping sound continued. I whispered for my boyfriend, but he kept snoring. I was lying about 5 feet away from the main door. There were 2 doors at the front of the RV and one emergency door at the back. I kept watching the little square hole in the door, hoping no one would come through. More silence. My heart was racing. I was afraid I was going to have a heart attack. I tapped my chest to try and calm myself. As I watched the square hole in the door, I saw a small, delicate-looking hand almost appear from the darkness. I almost shrieked out loud. The hand was definitely a girl's. I could see the fake press-on nails, the kind you could get at any Walmart. But that still did not stop me from almost losing it. I sat up and started screaming. I started wailing. My boyfriend's parents staggered into the room and all I could do was point to the door. Boyfriend's dad went to open the door, but there was a sudden crash. He fell back inside onto the couch, out cold. A rock had fallen onto the floor. Then my boyfriend woke up and started shouting. His mom went into a panic, tending to her husband. I was still screaming in shock. My boyfriend was flipping out. Eventually, I stopped screaming. When I stopped screaming, I heard hysterical laughter from outside, followed by heavy footsteps on top of the RV. "We're on the roof! We're on the roof!" I heard a high-pitched, nasally voice tease from outside. None of us had cell phones. It was 2002 and we were just starting to get into the cell phone craze, but somehow we had all abstained. The RV rocked with someone jumping up and down. Then there was a crash as someone rammed against the doorframe. The girl outside was laughing and screaming. She was mocking me. The dad managed to sober up, grabbed a gun from one of the cupboards, opened the door, and fired into the darkness. The prancing on the roof stopped immediately. The shrieking outside stopped as well. Everything went silent. I turned to look at my boyfriend. There was a window behind him, and I saw the face, a hood drawn over the head. I knew it was a man because I could make out the outline of a beard, but that was all. The man raised a gloved hand and waved at me. I pulled my boyfriend away from the window and started screaming. The dad ran inside asking what was wrong. I looked back at the window, but the man was gone. We drove out of the campsite that night with a broken window. My boyfriend's dad went to the hospital with a minor concussion from the rock. His wife drove, so we were okay. The parents called the police the next morning. Officers searched the area but found nothing. No other reports were ever filed after us. I had to go through counseling and therapy because I had trouble sleeping for about 2 years after it. My boyfriend and I broke up due to the stress I was experiencing from it. Eventually, I started getting better. While I was in university, a girlfriend and I decided to go to the movies. There was a new movie out called The Strangers. I decided to go because I had no homework. It turned out to be scarily similar to the experience I went through. I ended up having a panic attack in the middle of the theater and had to go to the hospital. A few months later, I read a newspaper article about a woman who had been arrested at a campsite not too far from where my boyfriend and his parents had been that summer. She had been vandalizing tents and RVs. I do not know if it was the same girl. The article did not show her picture, but it made me wonder. As of 2012, I no longer go to therapy or have nightmares. I do own several different types of guns now. If you knock on my door in the middle of the night, you better have a very good explanation for why you were there. Also, stay the hell off my roof. I just came out of a relationship and felt like a bit of casual dating will be fun, so I went on to Tinder. I made it clear to the few people I actually matched with and spoke to that I didn't want anything serious, just a dinner date or a pub night here and there. I matched with a really cute guy. Let's call him Pete. He had just moved to my city and wasn't looking for anything serious either. He just wanted to meet some people and see some local spots. The first night we met up at a well-known tapas bar. I chose this place because I had a few friends who were waitresses and bar staff there, so I felt safe meeting a stranger. He was on time. We had nice chats. A really cool guy on first impression. We spoke about work. He said he was a software developer just starting his freelancing career. We talked about where he lived now that he had moved. He said he was sharing a place with some friends. Rent is quite pricey in this city, so it made sense. He asked where I lived. I told him I was lucky to have my own one-bedroom apartment in a nice, popular part of town. Mostly thanks to my parents helping me save and giving me a portion of the deposit money for my 21st birthday. I invested it and grew it until I had enough for a decent deposit. He offered to drop me off at home. I said no, I'd prefer to Uber by myself. He asked if it was because I was going to meet someone else after him. I laughed because I genuinely thought it was a joke. The next time I saw Pete was about 3 days later. He said he knew it was fast, but he couldn't stop thinking about me and wanted to see me again. This time we met at a different restaurant, also one I chose because I went to school with the owner and knew the staff well. The place was a bit pricier, and he got annoyed with me for ordering as much as I did. I couldn't understand why, since I insisted on paying for my own food both times we met. That night, same story. "Let me drop you off at home, please." Again, I said no. While we were in the middle of the conversation, he got a call. He stepped away, but I could still hear a fair amount. "No, I think I'm gonna stay with you again." "Yeah, I'm with her, don't worry about it." "Okay, I'll be home soon." I thought he was chatting with his roommate or maybe his mom. I didn't ask. He came back to our table. "Please, I insist. Bad things happen to women that Uber home this late by themselves. I'd feel better if I dropped you off." Not having the energy to argue, I told him fine and put my address into his GPS. As soon as he got home, he messaged me saying he would pick me up in the morning for a picnic. I replied that I actually had cleaning to do, but he insisted, saying he would see me at 10. At 10 a.m. the next morning, sure enough, he was right outside my apartment. I got into his car. As he leaned over to kiss my cheek, I noticed that his breath stank. I was a little grossed out. Well, we had our picnic, which was quite nice. He tried to kiss me a few times, but I avoided it. By about 4 p.m., I told him I really wanted to go home. The park we had gone to was about an hour-and-a-half drive from my apartment, so Uber wasn't really an option. He agreed. On the drive back, I fell asleep. When I woke up, he asked if we should finish the rest of the bubbly we had for mimosas at my apartment. I said no, then he just snapped. He raised his voice. "What are you hiding from me? Just be honest. Why are you so desperate to keep me out of your apartment?" I was confused and kept quiet. He dropped me off, but I could see his car across from my apartment for about half an hour before he left. 5 minutes later, he messaged me, saying he was home safe and that he thought he was starting to fall for me. Naturally, I was freaked out because I had made it clear I didn't want anything serious, and he had said the same. I told him we should take a break from hanging out. About 5 days later, he messaged, asking if we could go for dinner again. He had found an Indian cuisine place he knew I'd love. I said okay, just send me the address. He said he'd pick me up. 7 p.m. comes. He tells me he's downstairs. As I go down, I see him standing at my gate. I pressed the remote to open it, and he walked inside to meet me. "Show me which one is yours. I'd love to see how you live." Not hi, not how are you, that was his opening line. Naturally, I was unsettled. I said, "I'm starving. Could we go for dinner first, and I'll show you my place later?" At dinner, he got a call again, and this time he didn't step away. Pete said, "Yeah, I don't know, I can let you know by about 10. Then he turned to me. "Am I sleeping by you tonight?" I said, "No, I don't know, I have work tomorrow." He said he did as well. Then back to the caller. "I'll let you know, okay. I heard the person on the phone say, 'No, you're not. Can you just get your things, please?'" Pete replied, "And do what with them?" The caller said, "Take them to that girl you're seeing. I'm done asking you." I was sitting there in absolute shock and terror. What the heck was going on? Our food arrived. We barely spoke. I said to him, "Why did you ask me if you can sleep by me? We're not spending time together like that, you know this." He spun a story about just wanting to hang out and see how I live. I said frankly that I didn't like having strangers in my apartment. He got very touchy. When the bill arrived, I'd paid for myself. I said I'd Uber home. He said, "What's the use? I already know where you live. Let me drop you off." By now, I had already decided this would be the last time I saw him. I got into his car and reached for my jumper, which I had thrown in the back when he picked me up. I noticed a bag in the back seat, full of clothes, toiletries, and a pillow. I didn't think much of it. My sister always has random stuff in her car. On the way home, he was dead quiet. Suddenly he said, "Do you know how selfish you are? I've had no issue driving you around, but you don't want me to sleep by you." I said I had no issue Ubering, and if he was concerned, I had no issue paying him what the Ubers would cost. I was over it and not playing nice anymore. His phone rang again. The caller said, "Your stuff is at the security room at the gate, Pete. Stay with your girlfriend or stay with your mom. You're screwed for taking advantage of everyone like this." Pete snapped back, "I don't speak to my mom, you know this, you bitch." And then he hung up. I thought it might be an ex-girlfriend trying to collect things. Before I could process, he turned to me and yelled, "I have nowhere to go. Are you happy, you spoiled brat? Living off mommy and daddy's money, getting driven around by me like I work for you, bitch." I froze. My body was stiff with fear. I didn't know whether to cry or throw up. In my head, I was planning how to grab my bag as soon as he stopped yelling and run straight to the cafe under my apartment. If you run through the cafe, you can reach a gate that takes you to the back part of my apartment. It has fingerprint access. I didn't want to risk using the main gate. He stopped at my apartment. As planned, I jumped out, ran into the cafe, ran out the back through the little gate up to the second floor. My apartment was on the fourth floor, and hammered on a neighbor's door. I told her and her husband everything and asked if they could call the cafe to explain why I ran through with no explanation. I blocked Pete and I haven't seen him since. I'm still not sure what his deal was. From what I gathered, he was basically homeless and probably wanted to get into my apartment to sleep there. I don't know if the girl who kept calling him was a Tinder date that let him into her apartment and he just never left. All I know is he scared the living daylights out of me, and I never ever want to see him again. So, all of this ended a couple of months ago and I only now feel comfortable sharing it. For background, I am a 24-year-old woman living in Australia. I work at an establishment that caters to an adult audience. One night, as my shift was coming to a close, one of the patrons asked to buy me a drink. I accepted because it was company policy. I talked him up to a couple of expensive drinks for the two of us, had a quick conversation, and then made my excuses about my shift being over, but told him he should come back to see me soon. I felt his gaze undressing me in his mind as he licked the splash of his drink from his upper lip. He stood up and, with this creepy grin, asked to walk me to my car. I am no idiot. I know never to put myself in that position, so I politely declined and told him I might see him next time. I walked out past our biggest bouncer and the guy didn't follow me. Great. Nothing extraordinary, just standard for my profession. But sadly, this wasn't where our story ends. Oh no, for this creep, it was only just the beginning. I was off for a week after that night. But when I came back to work, I was told that a patron had been coming in every night for the last week asking for me. He said he wanted to buy me another drink. Naively, I thought, oh great, a bigger paycheck this week, and got ready for my shift. The night rolled on, and who should walk in but our man of the hour? He asked for me right away, so I sauntered over and he bought me a drink. The whole time I sat there with him, he just had this creepy grin on his face. Not a sexual, undressing creep grin. That's normal. No. This was the kind of grin where he knows something you don't, and he is very pleased with himself about it. We talked and I got him ordering drinks and tried to upsell him where I could. About half an hour went by and I made my excuses to leave so I could try to spread the tips around. But this guy wasn't having it. He wouldn't let me leave, and the more I insisted, the angrier he got. By the time I gave a look to one of the bouncers, he was practically hissing at me. The bouncer promptly came over and diffused the situation, giving me an opportunity to walk away. Crisis averted. Wrong. The bouncer didn't throw him out. He just gave me a buffer. So this guy started following me around the place and even attempted to walk into an employee-only area, which is when another bouncer finally noticed and kicked him out. I finished my shift and walked over to my car. There he was. I kid you not, sitting on the bonnet of my car. How he knew it was my car, I will never know. He wanted me to give him a ride and started telling me how sexy I looked. He was spewing greasy slimeball creep lines and I was not interested. I tried to give him a hint and politely declined. But again he turned mean and grabbed my arm, insisting I give him a ride. I told him to back off and jam my key into his shoulder as hard as I could. He let go and I pushed him with all my might so he fell down. I jumped in my car, locked the door, and shoved the key into the ignition. He got back up and started banging on the window angrily. I mean hard. I thought his hands or my window might break. I gunned the accelerator and got out of there. 5 minutes down the road, once I was sure I wasn't being followed, I pulled over and called back to work. I told them what had happened and warned them that the other girls needed to be careful leaving that night. As I hung up, I broke into tears. This wasn't my first rodeo. I've been grabbed before and I will probably experience it again. But you never get used to it. I eventually composed myself, got back on the road, and headed home. I cried myself to sleep. The next morning, word had gotten around, and the owner called to make sure I was okay. I assured him I was, but he insisted I take some time off in case this creep came back. He wanted to put some distance between us, which made sense. A week went by, then 2. He was coming in every night asking about me and being told I had quit and no longer worked there. A lie to stop him from coming in. But he just kept coming in and asking. Clearly he didn't buy it. And then suddenly, 2.5 weeks in, he stopped. Great. I really needed the money at this point, so I was happy to go back to work the following week. Time went on and everything seemed normal again. Same old chancers, but the good kind that lead to higher paychecks. The abusive guy didn't come back, I was happy. But I started being forgetful. I would think I left a door closed when I left the house, but it was open when I got back. Lights on or off, food left out. Things ended up in different places than I remembered putting them just moments before. I was losing it. Probably just the stress, I thought. One of my close friends who worked with me reassured me that it was normal after being grabbed and that it would pass. This kept up for a month. Then one day I headed out to work and got 15 minutes down the road when I realized I had forgotten some clothes I needed that night. I headed back home and saw the lights in my front room on, and the TV was visible from the outside. I really was losing it. Good thing I came back. I headed inside and grabbed my stuff, made sure to turn off the TV and lights, and headed to the door. Suddenly I froze. There, standing and blocking the door, was the creep who had grabbed me. I was stunned, jaw dropped. Then, after what seemed like a lifetime of standing in silence, staring at each other, him smiling that creepy smile, I screamed, "What the hell?" I was screaming for him to get out, asking what he was doing there, how he knew where I lived, all in one jumbled mouthful of panic and confusion. He just stood there smiling at me while I freaked out. I was gasping for air in a mixture of a panic attack and sheer bewilderment. Then he decided to speak. His words oozed out of him and chilled me to the bone. "Welcome home, honey, you're back early." A switch went off in my head. I threw everything I had at him and sprinted to the back door. I was out of there. I ran faster than I ever had in my life, screaming bloody murder. No one helped. I hid in some bushes around the corner, tears running down my face, gasping for air. I checked my pocket. My keys were still there, but no phone. I had thrown it at him along with everything else. I sneaked back to my house, jumped in my car, and got the heck out. I headed to work, told them what had happened, and called the cops. The cops went to my house and sent others to my work. Stalker guy was gone when they arrived. They searched the house and discovered he had been living in my crawl space. That explained the doors, lights, and misplaced things. I packed up whatever I could fit in my car while the cops were still there and drove off. I haven't been back since. I moved states, knew everything. Creepy stalker guy, let's not ever meet again. Edit. Quick update. I took my car in to get checked by a mechanic as some commenters suggested. Nothing was found. I've been in touch with the police, and they report that while they have his photo from security footage, they haven't been able to track him down yet. That means he's still out there somewhere, and I still have no idea how he tracked me. I probably won't update again, but I just wanted to thank everyone for their support. It means a lot. This happened around 1971 or 1972, when my mother was about 14 or 15 years old. The incident occurred in a heavily wooded area near Montevallo, Alabama, not far from Birmingham. My mother is the oldest of 5 children. She has 3 sisters and a brother, who is the baby of the family. One weekend in the cooler months of fall, my grandfather decided to take the whole family, my grandmother, my mother, and all my aunts and uncles, 7 people total, into the woods for target practice with a rifle. My mother grew up quite poor and they didn't always live in the best neighborhoods. My grandfather wanted to teach the kids how to defend themselves with a rifle if need be. It was later in the fall, so the trees were bare and there were lots of leaves on the ground. The wooded area was just off a dirt road, a fairly rural spot. As they were setting up, my grandfather became startled. He heard the roar of a car engine deep in the woods. My mother remembers the car as a blue Ford Galaxy. Even though my grandfather had a gun, he completely freaked out. He told my grandmother and the kids to hide under a pile of leaves in the woods. He hid with them. The man in the driver's seat got out, dragged a woman's body from the car and just dumped her there in the woods. Then he drove away. Once my grandfather was sure the man had gone, everyone came out of hiding. The woman sat up and stared them straight in the face. My grandfather asked if she needed help. She said no, she would be fine, she didn't seem injured. And she obviously didn't want help. She hadn't put up a fight when the man dragged her from the car. My grandfather assumed she must have known him. He cut the shooting lesson short and decided to rush the kids home to safety. On the trail back to the dirt road, they passed the man in the blue Ford Galaxy driving out of the woods. My mother noticed a huge machete lying across the front seats. My grandfather made sure the man could see that he was carrying a rifle. Everyone was careful not to give away what they had just seen. The man started up small talk. He asked my grandfather how he was doing and what they were doing out in the woods. My grandfather explained that he had taken his family out for target practice with the rifle. The man told him to have a nice day and continued driving. And the next day, my grandfather went back to that spot in the woods. There was no body, but he did find the woman's wig, her purse, some Kleenex, and a pair of eyeglasses. He collected the items and took them home. According to my grandfather, that area of the woods was known for having shallow graves and being a dumping site for bodies. My mother became hysterical when he walked in the door carrying the items. She started screaming, "He killed that lady, he killed that lady." My grandfather took the items to the police station, but my mother doesn't think anything ever came of it. She never heard anything else about it. Well, she did hear one other thing. Early the next morning, my grandmother called my mother just before the kids left for school. She said not to take the bus that day. She would come home and drive them to school instead. When my mother asked why, her grandmother said, "Because that car is waiting for you at the bus stop."